And I'm very envious of the First Amendment in the States. I think it's unique. I think it's necessary, and I think it's an example to the rest of the free world. And I don't know if you're quite aware of just how insane UK speech laws are. How if I say the wrong thing on this conversation and it gets shared somewhere, or it's considered grossly offensive. This is the kind of language we have in our law. I could find myself getting a knock on the door from the police. Record numbers of people are arrested on a weekly basis for what they've tweeted or said. A recent case, we had a war veteran in this country, a World War One veteran, Sir Tom Moore, I believe he was called. It was a national icon, did a lot of good, a lot of
Yes.
charity work, and somebody in Scotland, I believe, after Tom Moore had died, tweeted that something along the lines of the only good British soldier is a dead soldier, or something like that. It was crass, it was abhorrent, but he actually got arrested and he's actually being convicted for this just recently as well. I mean, we had a tragedy in, I think it was 2018, a big tower block in London caught fire, accidental fire in a place called Grenfell.
Oh
70
yes, I
odd
remember
people,
that.
yeah,
Yes.
perished. It was
Terrible.
awful. But some idiots in their own garden created a mock-up of the building out of card and burned it and filmed it whilst saying childish and mocking comments. Again,
Yes.
abhorrent, distasteful. But they've been convicted too. I mean, one of them barely just escaped jail for it. So I mean, so how do we engender this idea to my fellow Brits that free speech is important, even for the things you find grossly offensive? As a matter of fact, that's truly the only test of free speech.
Yes. I wish I knew the answer to that. That's why we rebelled. So,
Yeah, that's where the tea
but
went over.
but honestly, I was shocked, as I think most of my fellow citizens are. I had no idea that Britain had these laws, and I can remember I'm just watching with dumbfounded amazement. I remember wasn't there someone who had, as a joke, trained his dog to raise its paw in a salute, and wasn't he arrested or something?
Yeah, Mark Meakin,
Yes.
aka Count Dankula. I've actually shared a panel with him a couple of times, and he's sort of like, I mean, there's still this concerted effort by the press and commentators to confirm the fact that he is a Nazi, and he couldn't be further from that.
Of
And
course.
yeah, he was convicted and fined under Scottish law for that as well, for what was clearly a joke.
Yeah. Well, the greatest exponent of free speech in my lifetime has been, a fellow citizen of yours, at least till he became an American, Christopher Hitchens. And if YouTube is good for nothing else, it's good for preserving all the great things that Christopher Hitchens said in defense of freedom of speech.
Amen.
And it's absolutely crucial. What I'm constantly struck by is the failure to recognize this most basic principle, or the most basic question that Hitchens was so good at reminding us of. Who are you going to get to make the determination of what's grossly offensive, especially in a multicultural society? I remember, I think I wrote about this in Quillette. Just take the complications involved when you have, for example, a school district which is teaching that students should be sensitive to non-binary people. Well, what do you do when the Orthodox Muslim parents don't want that to be taught? Who decides? There's simply no way to be in an actual thriving multicultural society without a very wide tolerance for freedom of speech and the freedom of expression of ideas, because there's simply nothing of importance that can be said that won't offend somebody. So instead of going in the direction of saying, and this is what you often hear, oh, we live in a multicultural society, therefore we have to be very careful about what we say, and we must, in fact, be so careful that we must be willing to punish people who offend other people. That's exactly the wrong approach. We have to go in the opposite direction. So Britain, if it wants to be truly multicultural, I would say it has to be open to a lot of different ideas, uh, because everybody coming into the country will have ideas that will be offensive to people who are already there. And so if we're really going to be open to them, we have to also be open to their ideas as well as our own. So that's what I would say to the Brits.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We do take. I mean, it's there's a lot of unfortunately Islamist hardline elements in the UK, and there's always a big reaction whenever there's a cartoon controversy, and
Yes.
Mohammed drawing cartoon controversy rather, and it's very difficult to explain to these groups that the same powers and freedoms that allow people to draw these cartoons are also the same powers and freedoms that allows them to practice their faith so openly, which of
Yes.
course should be protected too.